Ray Brown's Talking Birds.
Made possible by the generous support of the Birdwatchers General Store, Orleans, Cape Cod. Birdwatchersgeneralstore.com.
By Vortex Optics with the VIP warranty. Their unlimited lifetime promise to keep you and your optic covered. Learn more at vortexoptics.com. And by Hog Island Audubon Camp. For full camp schedule, program details, and to register, visit hogisland.audubon.org.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to our show number 1035. We know it's a good day because we have eastern bluebirds checking out a nest box in our Talking Birds garden, right behind our radio studio. On last week's show, we talked with Nick Kemble from the conservation group Five Gyres about the problems with plastic from the millions of tons of plastic trash that we generate every year. Well, friend of the show and Talking Birds ambassador Cecilia from St. Petersburg, Florida, has sent us a positive story that offers a bit of encouragement. She says, in part, I recently returned from a birding trip to Tanzania. It was really a wonderful experience. The most surprising thing I observed is that single-use plastic bags are illegal. When we got a boxed lunch from the different places we stayed at, most of the food was neatly wrapped in paper. It made me question, if Tanzania can do it, why can't we? Great question, Cecilia. We do not have a plastic bag ban here in the U.S., and under current circumstances, it seems unlikely that we'll have one anytime soon. Fortunately, some states have taken individual actions, and there are plastic bag bans or partial bans now in effect in California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington state, as well as in a number of U.S. territories. A long way to go still, but some progress there. By the way, part of another front in the fight against plastic pollution involves the upcoming International Plastic Pellet Count on May 3rd. The website PIRG.org has all the details. PIRG is P-I-R-G, PIRG.org, and we'll report about it here next week. We have an audio postcard from sunny and birdy Southern California. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Ray. This is Mark Dayton, the San Diego bird guide. And what you're hearing, this cat-like squalling sound, is tricolored blackbirds, which is a specialty bird here in coastal California. We're down here in San Diego, and the population is pretty steady at this lake, but I notice a general decline overall in their numbers over the last 20 years. So these are tricolored blackbirds. Occasional great-tailed grackle calling in there, and there might even be some coots in the background. There's quite a few birds out here. I'm out at Lindo Lake in East County, San Diego. So anyways, I hope you and your listeners have a great day. Bye.
Bye, Mark, and thank you. To send us an audio postcard, as Mark has done, just grab a smartphone or digital device of some sort and speak into it, describing what you're seeing or hearing for 30 seconds or a minute. And then just send the file to ray@talkingbirds.com. That's it, ray@talkingbirds.com. Here's another bird. This one is also from out west. It's our mystery bird. This is a preview of the contest, which we'll do later in the show. Here are some clues. Our mystery bird is a beautiful, slender songbird found in open woodlands in the American West. It's white underneath, dark, greenish bronze upper parts, an iridescent purple rump, a white face, a small bill, and long pointed wings. Our bird, which breeds all across the western third of the U.S. and up into western Canada and Alaska, feeds on flying insects that it catches and eats in mid-air. It often snatches prey by skimming low over water bodies and fields. And that's our mystery bird. And beautiful prizes include a $25 gift certificate for Bird Collective. They have beautiful stuff. It's your one-stop shop for vintage-inspired apparel and unique accessories, all featuring birds. Plus, a one-year subscription to the new birding magazine BWD, founded in 1978 as Birdwatcher's Digest, a very famous publication, and it's back and better than ever. Beautiful photography, illustrations, in-depth articles by renowned experts. It's a beautiful thing, and it's one of our prizes on our Mystery Bird contest, which we'll be doing just a bit later on in the show. Well, we are very fortunate indeed to still be able to say thank you to new Talkin' Birds ambassadors here on the show every week. And today we salute Josh Denton from Indian Trail, North Carolina. Josh says, I'm signing up as an ambassador because I feel that more people need to speak out and raise awareness about wildlife and natural lands conservation efforts. It seems that many people do not know about the different locales and ways they can help preserve and conserve our natural wonders. And thank you so much, Josh, and thanks for the kind words about the show. And we'll tell you how to become an ambassador after we hear from one more ambassador with some thoughts.
My name is Amelia Benarski, and I'm from Oak Park, Illinois. What I like about being a Talking Birds ambassador is I can tell people about the show, and my family knows I'm such a big birder, so, I'll give the cards out at Christmas, and then they get interested, and then the show can have more listeners and followers. What I would say to someone to become a Talking Birds ambassador would be, first of all, it's free. Second of all, you get a bunch of cool little cards that you can just, give out to family or friends, or just people at any birding event or park, or just whenever you're out at the grocery store even, slipping in someone's wallet. Also, you help people learn about birds and about conservation.
Well said, Amelia. Thank you so much. Become a Talking Birds ambassador like Amelia. And Josh, it's very easy to do, and I know they will attest to the fact that it's very easy to be an ambassador and get some of those cool little cards that you can hand out at your convenience to friends and neighbors, co-workers, etc. To become an ambassador, go to our talkingbirds.com website, leave out the G, it's talkingbirds.com, and just click on the Get Involved tab up at the top of the page. Still to come on our show today, we'll revisit a favorite interview about a fascinating and important Hawaii-based birds project. Also today, Mike O'Connor will join us for a Let's Ask Mike segment, almost live from the archive from last July, about the very feisty House Wren. And up next, a warbler that looks so much like a thrush that thrush is part of its name, is this week's featured feathered friend. A little Louisiana music there to introduce today's featured feathered friend, the Louisiana water thrush, a warbler whose long legs, long body, and streaked breast and belly makes it look less like a warbler and more, as the name suggests, like a thrush. The Louisiana water thrush is brown above with a white or buffy eyebrow that widens toward the back of the head, along with buffy and heavily streaked underparts. Its appearance is very similar to its close relative, the northern water thrush. When seen together, they can be differentiated by the Louisiana's larger size and larger bill. The location can be a clue as well. The Louisiana prefers moving water habitats, while the northern is more often found by the still waters of ponds and lakes. Despite their close relative status, these two birds are not known to hybridize. As the Louisiana water thrush forages along the edges of streams for adult and larval flies and beetles, as well as frogs, crayfish, salamanders, minnows, and worms, it has a habit of constantly bobbing its tail up and down. Its species-specific name, Motacilla, means tail wagger. Our bird winters through parts of Mexico and the Caribbean and points south, and breeds pretty much all across the entire eastern half of the U.S. lower 48, as far west as central Texas. Despite the Louisiana water thrush's sensitivity to water pollution and habitat fragmentation, its population has increased by more than 30% since 1970. The Partners in Flight database rates the species as being of low conservation concern, with an estimated global breeding population of about 450,000 individuals. It's Parkesia motacilla, today's tail-wagging, featured feathered friend, the Louisiana water thrush. Welcome again to our show, number 1035. We know about big years when birders go on a quest to find and identify as many bird species as possible within a calendar year. And when they do this on a worldwide scale, it's called a global big year. Well, our guest on today's show is on a worldwide quest of a different sort, although it certainly does involve birds. He's Brett Nainoa Mossman, and he's an avian biologist, conservationist, and photographer from Hawaii, known for his efforts to protect native Hawaiian birds. And he's engaged in a social media project called Birds of Hawaii, Past and Present, aimed at raising awareness and funding for bird conservation. And he's here with us from Waimea, Big Island, to tell us about one part of that project. Good morning, Brett.
Good morning, Ray. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, indeed. So the title of your project gives us a hint of part of what you're doing with the inclusion of the word past, because you're visiting museums to photograph and catalog specimens of birds that in many cases have gone extinct. Tell us, if you would, what that part of your project entails.
Yeah, so I've been on a mission over the last year or so just to document and photograph all of the native Hawaiian birds kept in museum collections around the world. And it's kind of a way to bring them home in a sense. So here in Hawaii, many of our native species are actually not in our museums. So in some cases, you have to travel 5,000 plus miles to see one of these birds. And so one of the big things that I want to do is reconnect our people here in Hawaii to our birds that are no longer with us, so that we can, one, increase our scientific knowledge of the species, and two, just increase the accessibility for people who are interested in artwork and other projects that can help elevate our birds back into our everyday lives, even though they are no longer living with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, we hear more and more stories about museums returning artifacts and works of art to the countries that they came from and that were taken away, often in questionable circumstances, and are now being returned, in many cases, to their original homes. And it sounds as though maybe part of what you're doing is doing something like that for birds. Is that nearly correct?
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing for me is I really want to be able to find all these specimens and to document them and to preserve them in this visual sense. So I haven't really been pushing to bring them back physically, where I think bringing them back in a digital sense is a way that we can kind of meet all of the requirements and restrictions that certain museums have, but I think ultimately one day I would love to be able to have at least a representative of each Hawaiian bird species back here in Hawaii. But for now, I'm just focusing on digitally preserving these specimens and trying to work with museums to help them digitize their collections, as well as bringing them back to Hawaii for access for people here.
Well, Hawaii has been called the bird extinction capital of the world, and many of the birds you're photographing represent extinct species. In a National Audubon magazine interview that you did, you referred to these birds as our grandparents. Say more about that, if you would.
Yeah, so in the Hawaiian worldview, native species like these birds they came to these islands before us, and they literally terraformed this place to make it the quote unquote paradise that it is viewed at today, and so these birds played a key role in the ecosystem in preserving forming our way of life here. And so in that way, we see them as this group of organisms that came before us and nurtured us and took care of us. And so it's then like our responsibility now as they're ailing to kind of take that same mantle and take care of and remember them, and so in that way there's this very close familial relationship with birds and our native ecosystems here and the indigenous people of Hawaii.
Many of the birds that you're photographing and cataloging are gone forever, but there are others that represent living species, and certainly many of those threatened with extinction. How do these birds figure into your project?
Yeah, so I'm still working on cataloging the specimens of living species because, even though they are still with us in life, it's still, to me, each one of these birds is an individual, and they deserve to have that represented in this project. So even if it's like there's been a couple species like the EEV where there's like more than 500 specimens in one institution, I'm still trying to give every single one of those birds their individual recognition through this project. The ultimate goal is to have all of the images available online for public access at any time by anybody. Now, setting that up has had kind of some mixed ideas. So right now I've been mostly just working on processing the images because 14,000 images takes a little while to get through. But I'm hoping to eventually get them up on either my personal website, the Bishop Museum website, or some other place, possibly the State of Hawaii website, where they can be available in perpetuity. We're trying to create this digital museum that you can access every individual Hawaiian bird.
A wonderful project, and there's lots of other work you do. Tell us about your work in Hawaii with Fish and Wildlife. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I work for the Department of Land and Natural Resources and the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. And within that organization, I work with the Natural Area Reserve System on Hawaii Island. And we primarily focus on work surrounding our endangered native forest birds and our vulnerable native seabirds. And so our work primarily focuses on predator control and monitoring avian disease, because those are really the two biggest factors that have been driving the extinction crisis here in Hawaii. These non-native introduced predators, and then the big one, avian malaria and avian pox, which is only spread by mosquitoes. So those are kind of the major projects that I work on. But I also do some work across the state with other avian projects.
Well, you mentioned that about mosquitoes, so I just have to ask you about that. I mean, as I understand it, what's happened with many of the birds is they are going higher and higher and higher in an attempt to escape the mosquitoes, but there's a limit to how high they can go. Mosquitoes are following them, and as you say, avian malaria is a big problem. How much progress on that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's particularly evident on the island of Kauai, where the highest elevations top out at about 5,000 feet. And unfortunately, in the last 5 years, mosquitoes have invaded that last refugia where Kauai birds are found. And so some species, such as the akikiki, are down to, we think there's about 4 individuals left in the wild, so they've really plummeted over the last few years. But fortunately, we are finally getting some mosquito control technology on the ground. So one of the methods is BTI, which is basically, it's the same bacteria that's used in like the mosquito dunks that people will put in their bird baths and things like that. But it's being spread across the forest to combat mosquitoes in their breeding pools. And then the other really exciting one that's in the works, it's been being released on Maui since June, is what's called IIT, or the incompatible insect technique. And basically what that is it's kind of like a birth control for mosquitoes, where they're releasing a bunch of these male mosquitoes that have a different strain of bacteria called Wolbachia that lives inside their cells than the wild females. And when they mate, they're not able to produce any viable eggs. And it's been really successful for human health around the world, particularly in Australia and Singapore. So we're really hoping it can help bring back our birds on Maui and Kauai.
Brett Nainoa Mossman is an avian biologist, conservationist, and photographer from Hawaii, known for his efforts to protect native Hawaiian birds. And his social media project, Birds of Hawaii, Past and Present, aimed to raise awareness and funding for bird conservation. Well, Brett, lots of people are following your work, I know, and we'd like to add some more folks to that list. What's the best way for people to keep up with your project and your other work?
Yeah, I think the best one is probably my Instagram page, which is just at Birds Hawaii, at birds_Hawaii_past present. And then you can also find me on Facebook with the same name, and TikTok at BHPP. And then you can always reach out to me too via email, birdsHawaiiPastPresent@gmail.com. I'm always happy to answer whatever questions I can.
All right. Brett, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for your wonderful work.
Yeah, thank you, Ray, and aloha.
Aloha to you. Brett Mossman here on Talking Birds, and up next, it's our Mystery Bird contest in just 1 minute. The flutter of a tail feather, the flash of a wing bar in mid-flight. You don't always have a lot of time to identify a bird in nature, let alone to appreciate its beauty. But with Vortex Optics, you'll have the power to bring every wild moment closer. When you choose Vortex, you're choosing to have a partner in the field as passionate about nature as you are. Whether you're spotting old friends on the backyard feeder or packing for a once-in-a-lifetime trip to add a few species to your life list, Vortex offers a full range of optics and optics accessories for every birder and every budget. And whether the birds are taking you to another state or another country, you're always covered by the Vortex VIP warranty, an unlimited lifetime promise to keep you and your optic covered. If you'd like to learn more, or if you need help choosing your next optic, give Vortex a call at 1-800-4VORTEX or visit vortexoptics.com. There it is again, our mystery bird. A beautiful slender songbird found in open woodlands in the American West. It's white underneath with dark greenish bronze upper parts, an iridescent purple rump, a white face, a small bill, but a big mouth, and long pointed wings. Our bird breeds across the western third of the U.S. and up into western Canada and Alaska. It feeds on flying insects that it catches and eats in mid-air. What is that mystery bird? Give us a ring here and tell us what you think for some beautiful prizes. I'll give you the number in a second here. The prizes include a $25 gift certificate for Bird Collective. All those beautiful vintage-inspired apparel and unique accessory things, all featuring birds. Plus a 1-year subscription to the wonderful birding magazine BWD, a.k.a. Birdwatchers Digest. 781-837-4900 is the number to call. 781-837-4900. We give our weekly urging to call as soon as you can, so we'll have time. 781-837-4900. Meanwhile, let's ask Mike, almost live from the archive in just 1 minute. Hog Island Audubon Camp has welcomed nature enthusiasts to its shores since 1936. It's a program of the Seabird Institute, and the island hosts 5-night sessions for adults, teens, and families taught by the world's leading naturalists, ornithologists, and artists. Hog Island campers deepen their relationships with the birds and the ecosystems around them during the island's immersive educational camps. New for the 2025 camp season is Let's Go Birding Together. Scheduled during peak fall migration, this session is a safe space for queer birders to connect with nature and each other while learning ways to foster a similar environment in their community's home. For full Hog Island schedule, program details, and to register, visit hogisland.audubon.org. Well, last week, our featured feathered friend was a very feisty bird called a thick-billed kingbird. Today, we're going to talk with Mike O'Connor about a bird that may be equally feisty or maybe even more. It's a common but unusually behaving in many ways bird called the House Wren. Mike, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Ray. Yeah, good morning. And great show, by the way. I love that electric car talk, electric bus talk.
Yeah, me too.
And also, I just wanted to mention, you got a kind of a widespread fan base out there. I've had visitors from North Carolina the last week or so, and a whole family from Kentucky also stopping in. They're big fans of the show, and they came in to see me on the Cape to tell me how much they enjoyed the show. So congrats on spreading Talking Birds, because a lot of people are listening.
Thanks for doing it.
So
have you learned how to say, did you say y'all when you talk to those folks? Or have you learned that?
I got to practice my Southern a little bit better.
I think if there's several people, it's all y'all, but I'm not sure about that. I think so.
I'll look that up.
So the house wren, anyway, what we've had them nesting in our Talking Birds garden here a number of times. They are feisty little critters, aren't they?
Oh, they're out of their minds. They're a little bit on the psycho side, actually. My favorite bird's a chickadee, but the chickadee is pretty predictable and pretty standard. But house wrens, the first thing interesting about house wrens is, I always thought, or most people think, house wren being a suburban, cute backyard bird from, fairly limited range like a lot of the wrens. But this is the most widespread longitudinal range songbird in the world. They nest from Canada all the way to the very southern tip of South America. They're everywhere in the Americas. And it's spread far and wide. And you could have one in your backyard or in the woods or in the jungle. But the interesting thing about this bird, a customer came in and said she just had a family of house wrens nesting, and the family fed the babies, and then the babies and the female disappeared, and the male is still here singing away, and she wanted to know what happened to the family and the female, what happened to the kids and the female. And like I said, they're unpredictable, and sometimes for a second brood, the female will take the kid, this is like a reality show, leave the male's territory, fly off some fairly close distant place, and start a second brood with a different male. Like a lot of birds have two broods, but they're typically with the same spouse, we'll say. But not always a house wren. She'll fly off someplace else. So right now the male's still singing away, trying to attract a new female, but his first partner is already gone, packed up with the kids. Wow. And when we talk about psychos, these birds are unbelievably aggressive, and they're not always as cheery as we like them to be, because they'll sometimes invade other nests and destroy the other nests. There's a whole story with that, but once the banjo starts playing, I know my time's up.
That's it, yeah. Wow, that's some crazy stuff. I don't think the thick-billed kingbird does much of any of that other stuff there.
It's just too hard to say.
Exactly. All right, Mike, thank you, and we'll talk to you next week.
You got it.
Yeah, that was a Mike O'Connor. Let's Ask Mike feature from last July. Back to the Mystery Bird Contest. Here's the bird singing, a beautiful, slender songbird found in open woodlands in the American West. If you missed the clues earlier, it's white underneath with dark greenish bronze upper parts and iridescent purple rump, a white face, a small bill but a big mouth, and long pointed wings. And we have Dorianne in Rybrook, New Hampshire. Good morning, Dorianne.
New York.
Oh, New York. Oh, no, New York. Sorry about that. No wonder I was trying to look up Rybrook, New Hampshire, and I was not finding it. I did find Rye, because we know Rye, New Hampshire. Anyway, it's Rybrook, New York. Hello, Dorianne.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Dorianne. Now that we've got your state right, and where is Rybrook, New York, exactly, or roughly?
It's in Westchester County. It's like a half hour from New York City.
Half hour from the city. All right. Well, you heard the clues there, I think, Dorianne, and the sound and all that, and your decision on what the bird is or might be.
Violet green swallow.
Wow. That's pretty good. And you don't see a lot of those in Rybrook, New York either, right?
No.
If you do, please let us know. Absolutely right. Dorianne, thank you so much. And you've won those beautiful prizes. And if you'll stay on the line, Jesse will arrange for you to make sure you get them.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dorianne. In Rybrook, New York, correctly identifying the violet green swallow as our mystery bird. And we're out of time. Thank you for being with us here. Next week, Juanjo Londano from the San Diego City College branch of the San Diego Bird Alliance. Another San Diego connection will be our special guest. Thanks to our amazing Talking Birds team, Debbie Bleacher, Frey McGregor, and our producing engineer, Jesse Wilkins. I'm Ray Brown. See you next week.
The Bird Show. I like that. I love it.
Ray Brown's Talking Birds.
Made possible by the generous support of the Birdwatchers General Store, Orleans, Cape Cod. Birdwatchersgeneralstore.com.
by Vortex Optics with the VIP warranty. Their unlimited lifetime promise to keep you and your optic covered. Learn more at vortexoptics.com. And by Hog Island Audubon Camp. For full camp schedule, program details, and to register, visit hogisland.audubon.org.